A friendly battle at right tackle has started for the Jaguars as they get ready to go to Canton to play in the Hall of Fame game. I'll talk to you about that and more from Training Camp 2022 in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So what's going on, y'all? Thank you for joining me for another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, trying to get this little angle here. If you're looking on YouTube, you see this little shadow, but it's all good. We're up in a remote location as the Jags are actually traveling, headed up to Canton, Ohio for the enshrinement of Tony Boselli into the Hall of Fame, as well as to play in the Hall of Fame game against the Raiders. We'll discuss that and more here on today's episode, reminding you we are free on all platforms, and we appreciate you making us your first listen of your day. There's a battle at right tackle, y'all, involving Walker Little and Juwaan Taylor. With the words of Trent Baalke raving about how good Juwaan Taylor was as a football player, and then in the offseason, he sort of chuckled at the thought that the team didn't do a lot to add more to the right side of the offensive line, and that they were somehow going to move on past Juwaan Taylor. And Juwaan Taylor coming out and lining up at the number one right tackle position early in camp made you think, well, that means that they re-signed Cam Robinson. So what does that mean for Walker Little? Is he just going to be a second-round pick who's going to be considered a swing tackle, which is a luxury to have? It's a good luxury for a good team, but not a luxury for a bad team. Well, as it turns out, Juwaan got a little bit banged up. I think some sort of soft tissue stuff going on with him. And Walker Little, the last couple of days, has had reps against the likes of Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, and has really held his own and looked really good. I'm going to point out something that I noticed about him last year that has been erased this year. And I'm going to mention his name one more time. Urban Meyer even mentioned it himself. At some point in the games when he did get action last year in the preseason and even in the regular season, what you saw was, for a guy who's 6'6", you saw these low hands. You saw when he was making contact with the pass rushers. And I know pass protection is only half the responsibility for a lineman. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything that he did in the run game, but his hands would almost come up. Like if he's in his stance, just imagine you're in your stance, you're in a 2-point stance. And when he started his kick and getting his position, his hands would actually come up sort of like a scoop, and they would come up from the bottom. And usually he made contact and his hands were too low. His hands were beneath those of the defensive lineman. And he would almost get the guys in their rib cage, like, and under their arms. And I remember in one of the press conferences, Urban said, he has those low hands, and that's something we didn't see in practice. I noticed it. I even asked some people who really know the offensive line and know the technique, and they said, yeah, he shouldn't do that. When he comes out, his hand should be up. He needs to be chest and shoulder high so that the other guy can't get leverage. And he has long arms, and he's a big physical guy. He's giving up all of his leverage, allowing a person to get close to him, and then using that little – when he makes his first contact, his elbows are bent, and they shouldn't be. When he makes his first contact, he should be here. And I watched for that in these one-on-one drills. He fixed it. And this is coaching. There's no way under George Warhop last year that he was doing that. He wasn't doing it in practice, and all of a sudden the games that he was doing. And if he was, then that means he probably wasn't getting enough reps, right? So I noticed it in practice this year, and I know we haven't played a game yet, but I noticed it in practice this year, and he is decisively better. He looks stronger. He looks more confident. He doesn't look as big, which means he's probably in better shape. And sometimes we confuse, because a guy walks around at 335 pounds, that means he's a big, strong cat. He might be better at 320 than he is at 335 because he's in better shape. And you could be smaller and stronger, by the way. And I think what we're seeing with him is, this is the perfect example And this is also, you can use this for the Chad Muma example. This is the perfect example of you never know what's going to happen. And I know it feels like teams hedge their bets when they do this, but history tells you that you really have to do this when you're in the NFL. And what that is you have to have guys that are stacked at these positions that's going to compete and make iron sharpen iron. You also have to understand that history will tell you that injuries happen, not just the running backs. The backup running back isn't just a guy who you just know his name. He's a guy who plays, right? You can do that at these other positions as well. You have to. And that's why having a guy like Walker Little and having a guy like Chad Muma, folks around the league or fans will always say that's a luxury pick. You need that second round pick and that third round pick to be a starter. Ideally, yeah, you're right. You do. But there's something else you need. You also need just a team of good football players. And sometimes you have to just take them where they come. And you can't cherry pick on how you're going to be. Okay, we want a good player here. We want a good player here. We want a good player. That's just not the way it works. It doesn't present itself that way. And the example I've used in the past is when you try to go lose weight in the gym, you just can't target one area. If you start exercising and eating right, that weight's going to come off where it wants to come off. You don't get to say, okay, I just want to lose my belly and I'll keep everything else. It doesn't work like that. And so when you add players, if you're adding good players, you sometimes don't get a chance to pick and choose where those good players are. So we're getting a almost a by default competition, but not really by default, because history has shown us that injuries happen. So I want to see throughout the preseason, I would like it to be a healthy on healthy situation, though, where you really have guys, you really have this idea of who's doing what because they're better than the other person. But sometimes it just does not go that way. It just doesn't go that way. The key is going to be this. If he performs well while Juwaan Taylor is out, does Juwaan Taylor have a chance once the season starts or once they get rolling along to even get his job back? Will he have to depend on an injury in order to get his job back? I think it's a good problem to have. The good thing about this is there's no controversy. They like Juwaan Taylor, and they like what Walker Little has done. And you can't knock that. That's a good thing for Jacksonville. Iron sharpens iron. Remember, every single year it seems like under Hudson Houck, the Dallas Cowboys would have two offensive linemen that everybody in the league swore could start for any other team. I remember one time we even got Jacksonville even signed one of them. So it's like they've done this over and over again. It's always the third. Lyle Collins was the dude this year that went to the Bengals. You know, it's like, oh, they can afford to lose, and they got a guy just as good as him. It always seems like the good teams have offensive linemen that sometimes 6, 7, 8 deep. So good thing for Jacksonville that's the case. We all know who Tyler Shatley is, by the way. Tyler Shatley, like I said, Tyler Shatley's going to sign him a 1 or 2 year deal until he's 60 years old to play with the Jaguars. But I want to talk a little bit about the what you won't see at the Hall of Fame game, which is coming up here on tomorrow. And I think it's a good thing. And that good thing that I'm talking about is you won't see any Trevor Lawrence and you won't see any Travis Etienne. I think that's a good thing for Jacksonville. And I'll tell you why I think it's a good thing in just a second after I tell you guys about BetterHelp. You want to talk about when you need help and life throws you a curveball? If you have someone who can help you through it, I'll tell you the worst thing you can do sometimes is get on the phone with friends and family, although I'm not discouraging that, and try to get advice from people who aren't really professionals because, quite frankly, they may tell you the wrong thing. You know, I've dealt with therapy and I still have therapy for pain management and sleep deprivation and trying to be a hero and deal with everything in life and taking on so much. And sometimes you just need a little bit of clarity and understanding. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. It's called BetterHelp for a reason. You can log on into your account at any time and send a message to your therapist, and they're going to be right there. It is wonderful to know that you have someone accessible at any time of day when you think you might need them. They have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp. That's HELP.com/locked-on. We appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I am Tony Wiggins. We're getting closer and closer to the real NFL season getting started. And I'd say people are excited. Folks are on their way traveling to Canton, and we'll get to them in segment 3 because everyone is going to invade Canton, Ohio, and they ain't seen nothing like the teal and black. Hopefully this won't be the last time, though. Hopefully we'll be doing it for number 28 or number 82 or both in the near future. I'm going to talk about 2 stars they have on the team right now that you won't see play in the game tomorrow in Canton, and that is Travis Etienne, the running back. I want to call him a rookie, but he's a second-year running back. He hadn't played last year. And, of course, second-year quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Etienne did miss practice this week with it wasn't an injury. It was more of an illness, as it has been described to me. From my understanding, I don't think it has anything to do with anything that happened to him last year, but he won't play, and I don't blame them for not playing him. He's that big of a part of this team, and you don't want him in a meaningless game going out there and having anything happen to him like last year. Trevor Lawrence also will not play, and if he did play, you'd see something extremely vanilla for maybe 3 or 4 plays, and then he'd be out of the game. I don't think he has anything to prove either. So I do think the decision not to play both of those guys is very, very smart. I know it's disappointing to a lot of people that wanted to get their first glimpse. You're not going to be able to tell anything about those guys playing or not playing. So I don't think that that's something that you all should be worried about. I think it's smart. I think it shows you what they believe both of those guys mean to this team. And that Travis Etienne pick now that so many people criticize, it is actually going to, at some point, we have to look back at last year's draft. If these guys end up being as good as we think they are, all these players, we have to look back at that draft and say, you know what? It wasn't just the Trevor Lawrence draft. It's the Etienne draft. It's the Tyson Campbell draft. That's a pretty good haul early. If you're Jacksonville, that's a pretty good haul. And the Andre Cisco draft, he's going to start this year 9 times out of 10. He's going to start at free safety, and he's another guy that folks are really, really looking forward to playing. At some point, we got to look back and say, hey, man, Trent did okay. He did okay in this draft. What will you see, even though they're not playing, what will the Jaguars be able to accomplish? It's a chance for folks that believe that they have to really, really grind and take advantage of every single minute of every single day of every single play in order to make this team. It is a chance to prove yourself. It is a chance to go out and separate yourself. If not from the first 45 or 48 guys on the team, separate yourself from the guys on the back end of the roster. Those other 44 people, separate yourself and say, hey, this is the dude we need to give another shot and stick around. One place you're really going to have a chance to do that is on special teams and with your energy. And even if you make a bad play, if you're a young player, those young players will have a chance to. Coaches want to see how you respond to something not going your way, and you'll have that opportunity tomorrow. It'll also be a chance to show how you retain information. While football is a team sport, and we constantly talk about it being a team sport, one of the things about it being the team sport is you get a chance to individually do your job and be judged as an individual of how you help the team. And the preseason is one of those things. I'll never forget Brian Mitchell with Washington. Brian Mitchell wasn't expected to do anything, showed his butt one preseason, and Washington at the time were the Super Bowl champions. Well, Brian Mitchell is a legend now in that organization, and I think he's the all-time leading yardage from scrimmage guy in that organization, all because of what he did in the preseason. And he went out there and he said, you're not cutting me with this play. So there's a chance for some guys to start their, hey, quote unquote, you're not cutting me moment with the Jaguars. And I'm looking forward to seeing that receiver depth after, if we go Kirk, Marvin Jones Jr., Zay Jones, those 3, I want to see what happens with that next group of Treadwell, Laviska Shenault, and then a couple of those rookies, the Whittingham kid. I really want to see what's going on with him. That's the little group right there that I really want to find out what they're all about. I'm looking forward to seeing Jay Tufele also play. He didn't get a lot of minutes last year. I want to see K'Lavon Chaisson because I'm this close to thinking that you can already say he's a bust because they drafted over him with Trevon Walker. It's not whether or not he's a bust. It's like, is he like can't play in the league bust? It's one thing to not be worth a number one pick. It's a whole other thing that the only reason you're still on a roster is because you were a number one pick. He seems like a dude that's a good guy that does all of the things he's supposed to do off the field. He looks the part. It's not as if he's not playing well because he doesn't work hard. It's not one of those situations. It's just gotten to a point where I watch him in practice and I watch the clips when I'm not in practice and I watch the tape and I just think, this ain't for everybody. You get that level is not for everybody. I'm convinced now he'll never be a Pro Bowler. The point is what do you do? Does he have guaranteed money already? Can you cut him? Do you get rid of him? Do you keep him a guy, keep him around? Do you try to turn him into a special teams player? So those are the things. But in order to do that, somebody has to pass him up. So we'll be looking to take a look and see if there's a young person on this team that's ready to step up to that next level and become the reason why they go ahead and make a move with K'Lavon Chaisson. I just don't see it, folks. And I know I'm not in the minority, but it just seems like he just gets swallowed up. Average lineman, like, my man Will Richardson, he ain't my man, but you know what I'm saying? Will Richardson just didn't even look like he was giving a whole bunch of effort. It was like he was blocking him like, move. You ain't going nowhere, So, and K'Lavon's flailing around in practice and trying to get around him, and it's like to no avail. You're not getting around him, dude. That's a draft pick that really hurt. And to think about that draft, that's him and CJ Henderson. The Jaguars could have had Justin Jefferson. They could have had Justin Jefferson. But alas, I'll tell you about a rookie running back named Snoop that has a real good opportunity right now to be a really, really good player for the Jaguars and make a tremendous contribution. I'll talk to him and we'll give traveling grace to everyone who is driving and flying to Canton, Ohio for the Hall of Fame game. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you about BetOnline.net, which is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball. Can the Yankees really keep it up? The NFL is about to start, so the preseason action is going to be hot and heavy. People will be watching that for their fantasy stuff. The NBA, they're still talking about making deals and making trades, and of course, boxing, UFC, and all other combat sports, and golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, sports, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts. When you guys start here with me every single day on the Locked On Jaguars podcast, and we appreciate you making us your first listen. You can make Locked On NFL your second listen. That's right. Locked On NFL is a podcast in and of itself. Usually I'm on there on Wednesday. However, because of travel, I did not record this week with my man James Rapine. But check it out Monday through Friday. There are different voices from around the Locked On NFL network that give it to you like you can't get it anywhere else. And it's also free on all platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe and make it your second listen of the day. Snoop, not Snoop Dogg, not D-O-double-G, but Snoop Conner, rookie running back, 5th-round pick out of Ole Miss. Well, he ain't missed yet. Snoop Conner is a downhill runner who takes that ball. He's built with a powerful body. He turns that thing north and south. And he's really different from both James Robinson and from Travis Etienne. And I think he gives you that other guy who can touch the ball 3, 4, 5 times a game. And I believe he helps out. I also think he'd probably work out as a good front man on the kickoff blocking or be the other returner for Jamal Agnew in the kick return game. But so far, he's caught the ball well out of the backfield. He runs a great route. He ran a great wheel route with Trevon Walker trailing him the other day, but Trevor just missed him when I was at practice. Doug has raved about him, but Doug also, like you do with most rookies, say, hey, he's good, but he has to keep putting practices together and a long way to go. And I love when coaches talk like that because it's like they let the young guys know, hey, man, you haven't arrived. You have to keep doing this consistently. You just can't show up and make a play every now and then. And around here, we sort of got used to guys being able to just make plays every now and then. And we're like, we think that means he can play. Something that I've said all the time, and I think I used this when I was talking about Jay Cutler. I said Jay Cutler can make a throw that maybe 5 guys in the NFL could ever make. But he also makes a throw that no one in the NFL should ever try to make. And the difference between whether or not you thought he was a great quarterback or a good quarterback wasn't his best and it wasn't his worst. It was his ability to not be his worst or best. That variance has to go away so you can really get an idea of who and what he is. And I think that's what it is with Snoop Conner as a rookie. Like, don't make the great play and then make the rookie mistake. The worst thing you can do is make a rookie mistake in pass pro. The worst thing you can do is make a rookie mistake in terms of getting a penalty on second and 3, and it turns into 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 13. I think coaches want to see consistency. It's not just a physical thing; it's also a mental thing. So with Snoop Conner, I think what's going to happen is eventually you'll see a situation where, as he allows the coaching staff to trust him more, he'll get some playing time. Of course, you always want your other guys in the game and your front line guys, but you want to also be able to change up the pace, especially early in the season when the Jaguars play a lot of games in the heat. You want to be able to change up the pace without losing a whole bunch in terms of performance as well as what you get from that position. So he's been pretty good right now. Another rookie that we're mentioning, another young guy that we're mentioning, that Trent Baalke and the scouting staff picked. So we'll keep our eye on Snoop Conner. I think because of James Robinson's injury and because of Travis Etienne not playing, Snoop has a chance tonight to really set himself apart. And even though I expect not tonight, tomorrow, but I expect the game plan to be really, really vanilla. But still, it doesn't matter. It's an opportunity for someone to show what they can do. And I'm looking forward to him doing it. A lot of people I know are either flying or many of them are driving from 95 heading west on 26 and then going north on 77 all the way up to Canton, Ohio. I think it's about an 8.5-hour drive. So I'm wishing traveling grace to all of the Jaguar fans that will be going to watch one of our own be enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Tony Boselli. I think it's a good moment for the organization. It's a fun time. I know Canton is a place that's used to a lot of big crowds, and they're about to get one because the Jags. So shout out to all the boys, the Bowl Take Pod guys, all the Bowl City Brigade, Teal Street Hooligans, and all of the other fans that are going up to Canton, Ohio. Traveling grace to all of you guys. I am actually in a remote location right now, having a long needed vacation in Outer Banks, North Carolina, with about 60 other people in a big 27-bedroom house called the Black Stallion. Look it up on it's something else, man. I'm telling you. So I'm having a great time. But I got my ear to the streets back at home in Duval County in Jacksonville. So I'm going to drop these pods. You're going to get these pods while I'm on vacation. And tomorrow we'll do a game day edition. We'll talk about the people that we hope to see perform, some names that we think can make a name for themselves in the Hall of Fame game. And then, of course, Friday we'll have a recap from the game and what we expect the weekend to look like and who made what and who did what and who helped themselves. So that's what you'll get for the next 2 days on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Make sure you travel safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.